time, or does it?
Nope.
Oh, no.
Good morning. Thank you for that. My name is Jane Dolan. I'm president of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. We are not going to officially start the business part of our meeting until Board Member Johnson arrives. We have a circumstance this morning where we will have 4 board members participating. One we have known for months would not be able to be here, and then one has had a business, her own private business, somewhat of an emergency this morning. So we'll do introductory things, and then when Board Member Johnson arrives, we will have the official start of the meeting. But we are meeting. So welcome, and thank you for joining us, those of you who have at this point. We are here in this beautiful auditorium of the California Natural Resources Agency, but we also are very fortunate to have the assistance of the company known as Fresh Air, so that we do not repeat the circumstance of our meeting in June where the sound system for people who are participating remotely just didn't work. So we have them here to assure that that does not reoccur, and I guess they'll continue to be work on this room system and hybrid ability so that we won't have any issues in the future. We do welcome returning to being able to meet in person, and I do see a number of folks here in the audience. Nice to see faces other than just a 2-inch square, but we will continue to do what we call the hybrid format because we have found that it is more accessible to folks who cannot travel for great distances or their work requirement would not allow them to take that time. Logging in through Zoom, calling in through conference calls seems to be a very effective way to increase our information and our participation. So that will continue. There were some lessons that we did learn about communication and outreach during the shutdown. At this point, I'm going to tell everyone here and logging in or conferencing in by phone that the meeting is being recorded. Does somebody say that, or is that just me? It's usually some unknown voice that says that, but that is occurring. So while we wait for having a sufficient quorum to officially open, I do want to ask for any introductions or announcements that would need to be made. And I understand we have some new staff to introduce. Is that right? My introduction is Sarah Backus, who is our interim executive officer. For those of you who do not know, and it would be hard for me to believe you do not know, Leslie Gallagher did resign and take another job. So her last day was July 22nd. We're sorry to see her go. We didn't ask her to go. We certainly wish her well on her new venture working for the city of San Diego. But the board was very delighted and immediately chose Sarah Backus to be our interim executive officer. So I will call upon her to make any introductions that need to be made.
Good morning, President Dolan, Vice President Valines, members of the board. Good morning, and we have just a couple of new employees that we wanted to introduce to the board in the administrative branch. We have Chriselle Montemayor, and she's joining as a training and procurement analyst. Welcome to you. I think she's viewing it, or maybe by video perhaps. And then in the inspection section, we have Jillian Bency Woodward. She is here, and please stand up. Yeah, she's a water resources engineer. Welcome, Jillian.
Well, welcome, and you look ready to go to work, so thank you for being here.
She's ready to go out and do some inspections today, so good luck. Thank you. And that's all of our new employees for this month.
Did you introduce? All right. Well, welcome to staff, and thank you for that introduction. Are there any other introductions or announcements to be made? Then we're going to need to take a break until Board Member Johnson arrives. We can't take any action, unless you want to listen to me review the agenda. He might appreciate missing that, so I will do that. As I said earlier, but we'll repeat at this point, we will have 4 board members present today. And as we proceed with the agenda, what I do is I call out each item by its number and its agenda title. At that point, we, even for this? Okay, I just got a note that I should probably not do this until we have a quorum. And I always take good advice. So we're going to take a break until Board Member Johnson arrives. Sorry for this inconvenience, but now we can talk with each other. Okay, here's the third welcome from Jane Dolan, President of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. I'm calling this meeting to order. And the first thing that I will do is ask our board clerk, Ryan Jones, to call the roll and determine if we have a quorum. Mr. Jones.
Board Member Grego is absent. Board Member Ramirez is absent. Board Member Countryman.
Here.
Secretary Johnson.
I'm here remotely, and I'll be there in person in a minute.
Vice President Valines. Here. President Dolan.
I'm here. We needed to just delay a bit. That's 4 board members who are present. That's our quorum. So a quorum has been established. We have 1 vacancy. We do have 1 board member, Ramirez, who we've known for months would not be able to be at this meeting as it was scheduled. And board member Grego had her business had a bit of a kerfuffle this morning that requires her to be there. There's a possibility that she can log in when that's done, but that's remote. So welcome. I'm looking at the door's making a noise, so I'm looking to see if board member Johnson, he's in the area. So there we are. So let me briefly review the agenda. As I said earlier, and maybe not everyone heard, our meetings are recorded. We are both meeting with allowing people to be in the room, and people are here in the room, welcome, and also to Zoom in and participate by video. So we have several doing that, welcome. And if they don't have that capability, you can conference call in. So we may have some of those as well. We are meeting in this resources auditorium. We have some added assistance today to make sure that the audio and the video does work, and we appreciate that, so we don't have a replay of our meeting of last month. The first thing that we do, and we already have done, is make introduction of staff. That does not require a quorum for that to occur. We have a consent calendar of 8 items. The consent calendar is determined to be matters that are routine, that have been fully vetted, and might be follow-up in most cases to an informational meeting before the board. They are taken as one motion unless anyone of the board or the public wishes to discuss one item. Then it's removed. We do the consent agenda as it is accepted. We take up anything that's been removed, and then we proceed with the agenda. After that, we have an item that is called public comment. All public agencies in the state of California have this spot on their agenda at some point where a member of the public can say something to the board they wish to communicate. It cannot be something that is on the agenda, and the board is prohibited from taking any action or having discussion, but it allows someone to talk if they wish to. We will have a very brief legislative update. Most of what we've received is in writing because the state legislature is out of session and the federal government is trying to work. Sorry for that editorial. We have a placeholder item for United States Army Corps of Engineers, but there is no specific presentation today. The Department of Water Resources has indicated that they have one brief report. They will provide presentations of certain development projects. Then we move on to board items. There are 3. They are all informational. Subsequent to that, we will have an indication that we have written reports submitted on behalf of our staff, the administration, and then the branches of operations, plan implementation, environmental services and land management, flood planning and programs. We receive written reports from that, put them on the agenda in case anyone wants to ask questions or make comments, but we do not ask for presentations. Then the board members themselves can make comments and committee updates that they wish to do. We announce upcoming board meetings and topics. And after that, we will adjourn the public portion of the meeting because we will have a closed session for board members and key staff only. And that is for the purpose to consider the appointment and recruitment of an executive officer. We do not expect any announcements for that. I believe that closed session will be very brief, and at the end of that, we will formally adjourn. I want you all to know that I am a board president that likes to take breaks from time to time for the relief of our transcriptionists and even for our own comfort. So that's the review of the agenda. If there are no questions, we can proceed to the real agenda. Okay. All right, we're now on the agenda. I expect to take everything in order except what we just did. So we're at item number 3. We already did 1, 2, and 4. We'll fix that sequence with the next agenda. We have the approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, April 22nd, 2022, and May 27th, 2022. Our board secretary is on the phone, so I'm going to ask Board Member Johnson to make your statement about the minutes.
Yes, thank you, President Dolan. We, as you said, we have 2 sets of minutes. One is readoption of minutes that we had at the last meeting. We realized that we had a document control issue and the version in your files was not the version we intended to approve, so we're reapproving those. And that was my mistake and not anyone else's. So with that, I'll move that we approve the 2 sets of minutes as stated in the agenda.
Board Member Johnson has moved to approve the 2 sets of minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'm going to give that to the Vice President. Board Member Valina seconded that. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question or make a comment about these 2 sets of minutes? I see none, so I will ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Jones.
Board Member Griego is absent. Board Member Ramirez is absent. Board Member Countryman.
Yes.
Secretary Johnson.
Aye.
Vice President Valines.
Yes.
President Dolan.
Yes. That motion is carried. 4 in favor, 2 absent, 1 vacancy. Did I get that numbers right? I think that I did. All right, we are at item number 5. This is the consent agenda item. There are 8 items. We have a permit for the Brandon Andrus Levee Maintenance District. We have a permit for the City of Chico pipe outfall structure for Little Chico Creek. We have a letter of intent to send to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for Cache Creek Yolo Bypass Knights Landing Levee System to prepare a state system-wide improvement framework. We have a letter of intent as well for a very lengthy number of systems that are together seeking to do a system-wide framework. And that will be us approving a letter to go on to the Army Corps of Engineers. We have transfer of operation and maintenance items, one for Sacramento River Bank protection. They're all Sacramento River Bank protection. One would go to Sacramento County, one to Sacramento and the Sacramento River East Levee, another one to Sacramento East. You always do these in little segments. Okay, there's 3 there of transferring operation and maintenance to the Sacramento River East Levee. So that's 8 items. I'm going to ask our Chief Engineer, Mr. Wright, if they are in order or any changes that would need to have an item removed. Mr. Wright.
Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board, Michael Wright, Chief Engineer. The consent items are all in order.
Thank you. Are there any board members that want to remove an item? Hearing none. Are there any members of the public who would like to remove an item? Hearing none, we will proceed to a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
Move to approve the consent item.
That's a motion by Board Member Countryman
I'll second.
and a second by Board Member Johnson. Thank you. I will ask for a roll call. Mr. Jones?
Board Member Griego is absent. Board Member Ramirez is absent. Board Member Countryman.
Yes.
Secretary Johnson.
Aye.
Vice President Valines.
Aye.
President Dolan.
Yes, that motion is approved. 4 yes votes, 2 abstentions, 2 absent, 1 vacancy. Move my paperwork here. We're now at item number 6. This is what's called public comment. At this point, I ask if there are any members of the public that wish to make a comment, remark, or a statement to the board for an item that is not on the agenda. Are there any such comments this morning? I see no hands raised in the room. Do we have any hands raised for our online participants?
We have 2 hands raised, one Mr. Ricardo Pineda and one Mr. Dominic Gooley.
All right, then let me call Mr. Pineda. Mr. Pineda, do you have a comment for the board?
No. Sorry.
Mr. Pineda, I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Okay. Sorry. No comment.
No comment? All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Gooley, do you have a comment for the board? Dominic Gooley, you might perhaps be on mute.
He's unmuted now.
All right, Mr. Gooley, do you have a comment for the board? Going once? Sorry. Is his hand still raised?
Yes, his hand is still raised and he's unmuted.
Mr. Gooley, this is President Dolan. Your hand is raised to make a comment to the board for something not on the agenda. You are able to make that now. Okay, we're going to need to move on then. Thank you. Item number 7 is legislative update. Our policy advisor, Mr. Darren Soon, handles these, tracking these issues for us. Good morning.
Good morning, President Dolan, Vice President Valines, and members of the board. Darren Senior Policy Advisor for the board. I just wanted to add some specificity to the earlier summary you provided this morning, President Dolan. In addition to I mentioned the Federal Register in my report that the Army Corps of Engineers has sought. They are seeking input on information gathering for potential future rulemaking on Native American and tribal nation issues, as well as implementing regulations for the National Historic Preservation Act and the Army Corps Civil Works principles, regulations, and guidelines which guide water resource planning for the Corps, as well as environmental justice. Those written comments are due by August 2nd, and the board and DWR have been working together to provide a letter on behalf of the Natural Resources Agency to that effect. We will also seek to forward those comments on to some national organizations, the National Waterways Conference and the National Association of Flood and Stormwater Management Agencies, NAFSMA, of which the board are members of both. With that, I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you for that. You also a bit filled in the placeholder item for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
Board Member Johnson is now present in the room. It's no longer on the phone, so welcome. Are there any questions for Mr. Soon? Thanks for that. Oh, is that Joe?
Oh,
Board Member Countryman.
Yes. This morning I received an email from the Corps about Section 7001 process that comments were due by, where is it here? Oh, that's the same one. This is what you're talking about?
No, this is separate, Board Member Countryman. This is regards to the Federal Register public notice the Corps put out about a month ago, seeking input on several regulatory issues that include the National Historic Preservation Act, environmental justice, and the Civil Works Principles, Regulations, and Guidelines, the PRNG, for the Guide Water Resource Planning for the Corps. And as you know, the 7001 is something that was something different.
I think we all got that email yesterday afternoon from the Army Corps, CESPK, whatever that is. They all speak in acronyms. And it was seeking, providing information for how to submit proposed new civil works, feasibility studies, modifications, development projects, or environmental infrastructure. And there's a workshop on that Monday, Tuesday, August 2nd, and any proposals would need to follow their format and be submitted by August 29th. So we'll work on that.
Yes.
So we are going to provide comments on that?
I hope so. We do know things that we want to have done with federal involvement and federal money, so we'll work on that.
It seemed useful that the non-federal sponsor could propose a study, so, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, for projects that aren't already congressionally authorized, we
Yes.
will seek to provide letters to that effect.
Right. I'm certain that some of us will be at that workshop on August 2nd, and then we will work on submitting something. There's always things we want to have done. Got to put it in there any opportunity we can. Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members on the legislative update and/or the Army Corps of Engineers notice, Federal Register notices? I see no board members. Any members of our public in the room? No hands are raised. Online? Any hands raised to speak to Mr. Soon's presentation? What about the conference call, folks?
Nothing online.
Okay, nothing then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That takes care of item 7 and 8. Item number 9 is the Department of Water Resources. It is my understanding that it is Mr. Steve Rothert who is going to give this presentation. I don't see him in the room. Oh, something popped up. Good morning, Mr. Rothert.
Good morning, President Dolan and Secretary Johnson and other board members. Appreciate the opportunity to give you updates today. Unfortunately, I didn't accept the invitation from the audiovisual manager folks, so I can't appear in video, but you will obviously you can see my presentation. So Ryan will help me walk through this, and we can get the updates to you all. And next time I will come in person to the meeting. So next slide, please, Ryan. So I wanted to update you on 4 events, recent events, including the visit and tour of the Central Valley flood system by the Army Corps of Engineers Assistant Secretary for the Army for Civil Works, Mike Connor, the groundbreaking for the Big Notch project at Fremont Weir and the Yola bypass. Also update you on some great progress of the Lower Elkhorn Basin Levee Setback project, also in the Yola bypass. And then finally, the exciting event of groundbreaking for the Lookout Slough project, also in the Yola bypass. So Ryan, if you could move us to the next slide, please. So at the end of June, ASA Mike Connor toured several projects via helicopter around the Central Valley with Secretary Crowfoot, Gary Bardini of SAFCA, and Army Corps Sacramento District head planner Alicia Kirschner um, here at the Tides End project, which is in the Yolo bypass, and it's more of a habitat project than a flood project, but these were some of the better pictures that I got on that day. And in addition to touring the projects, there were a number of meetings that that were convened with ASA Connor, including with Flood Board President Dolan and DWR Director Namath and other executives, and the Army Corps SAC District and South Pacific Division leadership to talk about how better to align state and federal interests to collaborate on projects, identify additional sources of funding, to advance equity goals and other measures. And I think by all accounts, it was a really successful visit, and lots of good ideas came about, and we're in the process of trying to follow up with the Corps on some of the good ideas that came up during that tour. So if you could just go to the next slide. This is just a shot of the Southport Levee setback project that was on the helicopter tour, and you can see the line of vegetation there on the bank, which is the setback area, and you can see a breach in the levee sort of towards the left end, the upstream end of the levee there. So the ASA Connor was really interested to see this and many other projects throughout the system in the 2 days of helicopter tours he got while he was here in the state. Next slide, please, is the Big Notch groundbreaking project, which or event that happened on June 23rd, where state, federal, and local leaders got together to celebrate the beginning of this project, which has been a challenging one to get off the ground and lots of issues to resolve with local interests and landowners, and still some to be resolved as we go forward with the project, and securing easements for the additional inundation that will result from the project. And I just wanted to show a picture of Supervisor Villegas from Yolo County, who's been a supporter of or helpful in this project, as well as a number of other multi-benefit projects in the Yolo bypass. And if you could go to the next one, Ryan, this is just a artist's rendition, if you will, of the project, the $190 million project, which will provide two-way fish passage between the Yolo bypass and the Sacramento River, with the primary purpose of improving juvenile salmonid access to 30,000 acres or so in the bypass in the winter, and also improve fish food production that will help native fish in the bypass and also in the delta as the food is transported into those habitat areas. And it'll also provide improved passage for salmon, sturgeon, and other native fish as they make their way upstream through the delta and through the bypass and back into the Sacramento River. And it should be completed by the end of 2023. So the next project we've heard lots about over the years, the Lower Elkhorn Basin Levee Setback Project. And I wanted to focus on one really interesting and innovative aspect of it, which you can see here in the pictures. But first, just a quick update that the contractor has completed over 3/4 of the new levee, which you can see there on the right in the lower picture. So they've moved over 4 million of the 5.2 million cubic yards that will be required for that new levee. And I just toured it yesterday, and there are just a couple of relatively short sections left to complete of that new levee. The interior drainage, ditches and detention basins are complete, and the new pump station should be completed by the end of the fall. But what I was interested in showing today was this, I think what is called tied concrete block mats, which you can see they're stretching off into the distance, is a series of concrete blocks that are probably 6 by 6 inches tied together in a mat that will be laid on the water side of the levee, several rows of them that will help reduce erosion and make maintenance of the levee more efficient and less costly. And I think there's 7 or so miles of new setback levee, and I think there will take 3 strips of this concrete blocks to cover the levee at least. So they're going to make something like 20 miles or so of these concrete block mats, and then assuming the testing results of the mats come back as expected, the crews are expected to start placing those mats on the levees in the next week or two. So the project team has been experimenting with different configurations of the block mats and anchoring methods over the last few years, and think they have a good approach to it that will benefit maintenance and also reduce erosion from wind waves, and also allow for native grasses and other vegetation to grow well. So that's that. And then if we could move to the next one, the Lookout Slough groundbreaking, which I think was on June 30th. And you can see President Dolan there, fourth from the right, with the golden shovel obligatory picture with these groundbreakings. It's been an exciting and active summer for projects. And the multi-benefit project will expand the capacity of the Yola bypass and improve flood protection, as well as restoring over 3,000 acres of habitat for native fish and wildlife, roughly consistent with that map there you can see on the right. And if we could go to the next one, I just wanted to show this. If you can see the string of colored flags there connecting the state and US flags, that is to show the actual prism of the levee that will be constructed as part of this project. So significantly increasing the strength of the levee and the size of the levee that will improve flood protection for the agricultural lands and communities in the nearby areas, as well as improving system performance for the broader Sacramento area. And the last picture I have here is a picture I took just before, I think June 29th, that shows the work that had already gotten underway, preparing the foundation for the levees, as well as the access roads that are essentially levees that will be needed to provide access to the PG&E towers that you can, one of which you can see there on the right. So even a month ago, they had already gotten underway, and I'm told that they're making good progress, and they're on schedule for, I believe, what will be a 2-year construction period. So those were the updates I wanted to provide, and I think, you know, it's important to acknowledge and celebrate these events where we're making significant progress on projects that will improve system performance and improve flood protection, as well as habitat for native fish and wildlife species. So thanks for the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Rothard. We heard you very well.
Great.
Sorry not to see your face, but your PowerPoints were powerful. And this final photo of the sunset, I think it's sunset.
Yep.
That's stunning. Thank you for providing those. Board member Countryman has his hand raised.
Yes, I'm wondering if we can go back to the slide showing the construction of the mats.
Mhm.
There we are.
So is that the mat being laid down there on the ground and then is going to be put on the levee slope, or what exactly? What's the construction process here? I'm not quite understanding it.
Yeah, thank you, Board
In the
Member
bypass.
Countryman. I should have provided better explanation. So yes, this um, that piece of equipment there that you see on the right um, is, when in operation, will have a concrete truck right in front of it, sort of in the, so below it in the image there, that will be constantly pouring cement into the tank there, if you will, or the trough that you can see in the left picture, where the worker is mixing and spreading out the concrete. And then to the right of that trough, you can see the concrete, or the nylon netting material in that mesh there. And as the piece of equipment rolls forward, the concrete blocks, or the concrete is deposited onto those that mesh material directly onto the ground, and sort of in a continuous fashion will just keep going for, as you can see, for thousands of feet. And then they are allowed to cure in the sun. And when I was there yesterday, this photo is probably from 3 weeks ago or so. And as I was there yesterday, there you would see dozens and dozens of rolls of the concrete block mats that are cut. So they're cut into sections and then rolled up to allow for the placement of them in sections onto the levee after the levee has been disked. And then they'll be anchored with, I think, metal sort of stakes or staples into the soil once placed in place.
I don't know if it's possible, but I would like to go out and inspect or view this. This is something totally new I have never seen before, and I'd like to get a better understanding of it out there. Thank you.
Yeah, I would be happy to help facilitate a tour, a visit for you and anybody else in the on the board or staff of the board. And what I learned yesterday is that that these sorts of concrete block mats have been used in other parts of the country, but not on a core partner project in California. So it's a bit of a novel application, but they have performed as expected and very well in other situations across the country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Countryman. I would like you to do that, and there might be others who would be interested, not the whole board, because we'd have to have a meeting, but let me ask the executive officer to work with you and staff to see how Mr. Rothert can arrange for that to be done on site. It's active construction, we understand that, but it'd be good to have you see it and report back, Mr. Countryman.
Absolutely, I'll follow up. Thank you.
And your contact will be Sarah Backus, our executive officer. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great, thanks.
thank you. Any other hands raised? Not in the room? Online?
Dominic Gooley has his hand up again.
I think, Mr. Gooley, are you going to keep your hand up for everything? And are you wishing to make a comment at this point? Mr. Gooley? I hear nothing, so we'll go on. Any other hands raised? Mr. Jones? Okay. It's a bit early for me to call for a break, but I'm going to for 10 minutes so we can reorganize and then come back to board items. 10-minute break, please. Thank you. I do it.
Doing a great job, Jane. Good job.
We're ready. We're ready. Well, I never want to sound like the flood board meeting is back in session. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was happy to have that break. And there's a lot of chatting going on, which I think is so helpful. So we are returning to our meeting, and we are at item number 10, which is board items. These are informational items. The first is one that is every month, and maybe we'll even continue after we adopt the plan. Ruth Darling of the Flood Planning and Programs Branch will provide information as to what's happening and what's going to happen. Good morning.
Great, thank you. Good morning, my name is Ruth Darling. I'm a program manager with the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, and thank you, President Dolan. Good morning, members of the board. So today I just wanted to provide I wanted to make sure the presentation loads real quick. There, thank you. So I wanted to provide a brief update on our process and the board's process that's leading to adoption of the plan. So the California Department of Water Resources transmitted the public draft of the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan to the board on April 22nd, 2022. And as most of you know, this is the second update of the 2012 Central Valley Flood Protection Plan. This plan focuses on climate resilience, performance tracking, and integration and alignment with other state policies. It also fulfills the requirements of the Central Valley Flood Protection Act of 2008. The board is responsible for adopting the plan, for conducting public hearings, to receive comments on the plan, and also to host workshops, to review written comments, and to inform any changes to the public draft prior to adoption. Thank you. The public comment period for the public draft, back one, sorry. Thank you. The public comment period for the public draft was open through June 6, 2022. During that time, the board hosted 3 public hearings to receive verbal and written comments on the plan. In July 2022, the Central Valley Flood Protection Board announced 3 public workshops to consider comments on the flood plan update. And this is the next step of public engagement as part of the adoption process. Next slide, please. So this should be a familiar slide to folks. This indicates who has commented on the plan by June 6, 2022. So that's a total of 21 different commenters for a total of 255 comments received to date. Next slide, please. Our proposed schedule for workshops on the flood plan. So 2 weeks ago, we had a conservation strategy and operation and maintenance workshop. A week from today, we will have a workshop on funding and policy recommendations. So the board will consider potential changes to the flood plan in response to comments related to funding and policy recommendations. We will also introduce the call to action. So we will introduce initial concepts for a call to action for the 2022 final draft of the flood plan. The call to action will support priority actions for the $25 to $30 billion need of local, state, and federal investments over the next 30 years for Central Valley flood management. On August 12th, we will have our climate change workshop, and then we will take a deeper dive into the call to action. August 19th is still tentative if we need that date for additional topics or to continue a topic that we've already workshopped. We still plan on August 26th to provide an informational briefing to the board on the draft resolution. And wow, that date in October is way off. On October 29th is the proposed date for board adoption. And so
Which
this
does not, as I understand it, does not necessarily mean that there's no action, no discussion, no work between our last board informational discussion on August 26th, and then we reappear talking about the plan on August 28th.
Right. There is a lot going on in the interim. So in terms of taking the public draft to final, as well as development of the call to action, and then any revisions.
Right.
So this slide details the recommended pathways to adoption. So that top box is the comments that are received, and they will be addressed via distinct pathways. So it could result in minor changes to the final draft of the flood plan. Recommendations could end up in the board's resolution of adoption. It could also be addressed in future updates, including the 2027 flood plan, or it can be included into other state planning efforts. And there's also another pathway, which, you know, these are items that fall outside of the scope of the flood plan. And those pathways could lead to board adoption. And with that, I open it up if there's any discussion or questions.
Thank you, as always. We'll keep this on each board agenda for updates, for comments. So do board members have any questions, comments for Ms. Darling's presentation? Vice President Valines.
Just logistics. So like next week is an online one?
Yes,
And
thank
then are
you.
they varying degrees of that? Are they all online or what are they?
So August 5th and August 12th are virtual with the board's WebEx account.
Okay. And it
Yes.
says that on, I'm sorry, I should have said.
I don't think it says that on the slide, so thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, nice. And then the others would be in person.
There will be no workshop on the plan in person. It was just August 5th for the RD 1000 piece.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, we decided to do them virtually. We tend to get better turnout
Yeah.
when the
Okay.
meeting's virtual.
Thank you.
But our board meetings on the fourth Friday are the way they are
Yes.
today, in person or online. Even if you're in the building, you can choose to be online. Somehow, okay, thanks. But the workshops on the 5th and the 12th will be virtual only.
Right. And that August 5th agenda is already posted on the board's website,
All right,
so the login information's there.
saw that, okay. Anyone else? Sounds good. Anyone here in the room? Some folks left. I see no hands up. Are there any hands up online other than Mr. Gooley?
No hands online.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Thank you very much. I like those visual presentations of the process. Our next item is Board Item 10B, as in best. Yolo Bypass, Cash Slough Partnership. Informational presentation on the California Environmental Quality Act Notice of Preparation and Public Scoping Meetings. Say that 3 times fast. You are Megan Giulini? Yes, Megan Giulini. All right, good morning.
So yes, my name is Megan Giulini. I'm a senior environmental scientist in the Flood Planning and Programs branch. And I'd like to talk to you today about the Yolo Bypass Cash Slough Partnership, the master plan, as well as our upcoming programmatic environmental compliance efforts. Next slide, please. And one more. Thank you. So as I mentioned, I'd like to provide an overview of the Yolo Bypass Cash Slough Partnership and the master plan. I'm going to be highlighting our upcoming programmatic environmental compliance efforts related to the California Environmental Quality Act and the Notice of Preparation. My colleague, Christine Van Skyke, will talk to you about our current and ongoing outreach efforts. And then I'll come back and talk to you a little bit more about next steps for the CEQA process related to the master plan. Next slide, please. So to provide a brief background on the formation of the Yolo Bypass Cash Slough Partnership and its vision, As you may recall, the partnership was formalized in 2016 by the signing of a memorandum of understanding by 15 federal, state, and local agencies. In addition to the memorandum of understanding, there have been 2 legislative actions that have informed the partnership's purpose, vision, and its efforts. The federal legislation, the Water Resources Development Act of 2020, identified the partnership through authorization of a federal comprehensive study. This federal comprehensive study may include system-wide analyses of the Yolo Bypass Program, multi-purpose and system-wide federal project planning and resiliency, and it will identify site-specific projects with federal interest. The WRDA also acknowledges, endorses, and formalizes federal participation in the Yolo Bypass Cash Slough for project planning and implementation. So depending on the comprehensive study's findings, there may be opportunities for Congress to consider federal authorization and/or funding for additional activities. I wanted to highlight, though, that the federal comprehensive study is early in its formulation, so as more information is available, board staff will be happy to come back and provide updates to the board. The second piece of legislation was in September 2021, and that was state legislation, Senate Bill 369, which endorsed the Yolo Bypass Cash Slough Partnership and its role in projects, planning, and implementation. SB 369 specifically endorses engaging with partners and interested parties, coordinating implementation, review of technical documents and project financing, fostering agricultural sustainability and economic health of the region, and facilitating future appropriation of funding for projects. Next slide, please. So our vision of the partnership encompasses 6 main pillars or priorities, as highlighted on this slide. These are all part of collaborative planning for a vibrant future for the region's residents, businesses, and ecosystem. These six pillars speak to the purpose and major components of projects in the master plan. In addition to these pillars, we'll consider important resources such as tribal cultural resources in both the master plan's planning efforts as well as our environmental review processes. Next slide, please. So Yolo Bypass improvements in the planning area have been considered and recommended in the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan, as well as the conservation strategy. The partnership's efforts also align with other state efforts. And for the partnership, we want to refine and enhance what was envisioned by the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan and be consistent with and build off of those efforts. I'd like to now transition to speaking more about the master plan and its envisioned contents. Next slide, please. So the California Department of Water Resources is preparing the master plan in collaboration with our other partner agencies. The Yolo Bypass Cash Slough Master Plan will present a vision of the future Yolo Bypass Cash Slough region and serve as this programmatic framework that will outline an integrated approach to implementing multi-benefit activities across a shared landscape. This slide highlights the anticipated key elements envisioned for the master plan. This shows everything from governance-related topics such as program management to potential implementation pathways and tools such as programmatic guidance, funding strategies, and regulatory approaches. Next slide, please. So for the key elements previously identified, the master plan will include a series of planning assumptions that will inform the program's implementation as well as a programmatic environmental analysis. The master plan will support implementation of a suite of related projects that collectively increase flood conveyance capacity, enhance aquatic and terrestrial species habitats, and preserve agricultural land and economic values. The master plan will describe a long-term management strategy with assumptions on potential multi-benefit operations and maintenance activities. In addition, the master plan will identify phasing to guide development and implementation of these projects and performance metrics for hydraulic and ecosystem improvements. Other planning assumptions will include shared roles and responsibilities between the local, state, and federal partners, as well as inclusion of tribal values and interests. Next slide, please. So I'd like to transition from our discussion on partnership and master plan to more about the environmental compliance efforts related to the master plan. I will focus on the California Environmental Quality Act processes. Next slide, please. So the Central Valley Flood Protection Board will be the CEQA lead agency for the master plan CEQA compliance activities. The objectives of the programmatic CEQA document that will be prepared for the master plan are primarily related to providing an overarching assessment of the landscape-wide actions and effects of the master plan's various components. This foundational landscape-wide assessment can be used to inform potential project phasing and potential hydraulic and ecosystem resource changes over time. It will also support streamlined project-level environmental reviews of the master plan's projects and operations and maintenance activities. Next slide, please. So why are we doing a program EIR? Well, really, it's due to the complexities of the YOLO bypass cash loop program, the long-term planning nature of the master plan, and the programmatic nature of the CEQA document, and the potential for significant and unavoidable environmental effects. Next slide, please. So to share a little bit more about the CEQA process and the program EIR, we are currently at box number 1, which is the decision to prepare a program environmental impact report. We are in the process of preparing the notice of preparation and getting it ready for final release. I'd like to highlight that the boxes on the slides are related to notices and our environmental documents. I'll be prepared. The ovals on the slide highlight the public engagement and outreach opportunities. So we're about to release the notice of preparation, and that will initiate the scoping period. The board will then consider scoping comments and afterwards prepare a draft PEIR. There will be another opportunity for public engagement and comments during the public review period. We'll consider all of those comments and then prepare responses to those comments in the final PEIR. The PEIR will analyze environmental benefits and impacts of the master plan, evaluate alternatives and cumulative impacts, and identify any needed mitigation measures. Next slide, please. So the PEIR will consider and evaluate all components of the master plan for the resource topics as shown on this slide. For each of these topics, the PEIR will consider direct and indirect effects, the collective impacts of all the projects, as well as cumulative impacts with other related past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future projects. Alternatives to the proposed program will be evaluated. The environmental analysis will focus on examining the potential environmental impacts and benefits associated with the improvements implemented as part of the proposed program. The EIR will also identify feasible mitigation measures and alternatives that can be implemented to avoid or minimize any potentially significant environmental effects. Next slide, please. So as mentioned previously, one of the first opportunities for public engagement and comments in the environmental documentation process is the scoping period. The scoping period begins when the notice of preparation is publicly distributed. Under CEQA, scoping is designed to examine a proposed project early in the EIR's environmental analysis and review process. It's intended to identify the range of issues pertinent to the proposed project and feasible alternatives or mitigation measures to avoid and reduce potentially significant environmental effects. So the notice of preparation will be distributed as broadly as possible in the manner shown in the bullets on the slide. We'll have a newspaper posting as well as email distribution. Physical mailings will be sent out to tribes and relevant public agencies. And we'll also post it on the board's website and the partnership website. And meetings will be held during the scoping period to provide another opportunity for commenters to learn about the master plan's development and provide comments. Next slide, please. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Christine Van Skyke, for more information on our engagement efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, President Dolan and board members. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Christine Van Skyke. I'm a program manager with the Flood Planning and Programs branch here with the board. It's my opportunity today to talk to you more about the Yolo Bypass Cash Loop Partnership and our opportunities for outreach, communication, and engagement thus far. Next slide, please. So one of the many steps that we've taken towards reaching out to our interested parties and members of the community in our landscape is to create a new website that we launched on March 10th. That website is available to provide an opportunity to learn more about the partnership and some of the past information that we have available for resources on that site. We also developed in coordination with GovDelivery, a listserv for our partnership, which currently has 886 subscribers. To facilitate public engagement for drafting of the master plan, to continue coordination with our existing partners and our interested parties in the landscape to prepare us for the upcoming NOP, as Megan mentioned, is one of our first opportunities to outreach to this community. In addition, on March 8th, we did hold a board workshop for the YBCS partnership, and at that workshop we did draw over 140 participants. Next slide, please. Since then, our pre-NOP engagement activities include a pre-AB 52 tribal engagement workshop and meeting that was held with our local tribes to inform them of the partnership and activities coming up, including our CEQA scoping. And we are planning additional engagements with our tribe as we continue forward in our partnership outreach and engagement. The tribes will receive an AB 52 notification before we do release the NOP. And other efforts to engage and inform interested parties, including outreach for our local maintaining agencies and reclamation districts and those engineers that are affected by the work that we're planning in the region. Next slide, please. So one of the first outreach opportunities we are preparing to publish a postcard for those that are landowners and working and living within our program footprint. This postcard is being drafted on behalf of the partnership, and materials for the NOP and other publications are currently in approval process right now. It's our job as we build a partnership to build new procedures on how to get these publications moving forward with consent of all of our engaged partners. And we're getting that ironed out, and we're going to get this released soon in August. We do hope to begin advertising for the scoping meetings and post the NOP by August 15th. And we will share this announcement and other information regarding our scoping meetings and the NOP on the partnership website, as well as bulletins released with our GovDelivery listserv. Next slide, please. So I'd love for you to visit our website to learn more about the partnership, to visit the Get Involved page and learn more about this upcoming opportunity and scoping meeting. And there's a way to sign up for our GovDelivery listserv as well. This is a great resource for information, links and resources. There's a map of our program area, and the NOP will also include a more detailed list of potential projects and potential program area. And so with that, I'll pause at this point for outreach questions, if you have them, to the board.
Public engagement and outreach is one of my goals and something that I focus on and think is so important. And I'm very impressed with your list of activities and the activities and ways that you are proposing and giving to people to be input. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Dolan. All right, so with that, I'll pass it back to Megan so she can go over our next steps. Thank you very much.
And I also want to highlight, because you said this, and that's fine that you stated it, but I want to highlight that the board is the lead agency for CEQA in this instance.
Yes.
That's a very important role, and it's something that we willingly wish to take on, and we will do a good job.
Thank you.
First time.
Yes. So next steps, the notice of preparation will be publicly released in the near future and widely distributed. It will contain all the information on how anyone can provide comments and where to and how to attend the scoping meetings. It will also contain information on the master plan's components, as Christine mentioned, and a project map. The NOP's release will initiate the 30-day scoping period, and we will hold meetings during that scoping period. Following the conclusion of the scoping period, we'll consider those comments and incorporate them into the master plan and program EIR development activities, and we're anticipating the public drafts of the master plan and program EIR will be released in mid-2023. Next slide, please. So as Christine mentioned, we're anticipating releasing the NOP approximately on August 15th, and these are our anticipated dates for the scoping meetings. We'll have one virtual and one in person on August 31st. And please stay tuned, look at the partnership and board websites for the updates. Thank you. Next slide. And with that, I'd take any questions you may have. Thank you.
I do have one. This is President Dolan. I'm showing you this map, which you provided in the packet today, and I regret that I did not go onto the website. I had done before, and I think it's great that there is one dedicated to this project. Is this map searchable?
Not yet.
Not yet. I know that's tough to do.
Not yet. That'll be released with the NOP as part of our publication approval, and that's in, since the board is the lead agency, that's in our current approval routing right now.
I know that there's a tool that you can expand it so you can actually read it. Because this is a very complicated geographical environment.
Yes.
Lots of things being proposed and thought about, need to look at. So we'll just keep expanding it until we can read. Thank you.
We will also have a list of the projects too in the NOP.
Yeah. It's always something to do, right? Board members have, Board Member Johnson?
I do, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and wanted to second what President Dolan said about public participation, and want to compliment you and the whole project team on the work and on the partnership website, which is nice. I do want to clarify for folks in the audience who might be wondering about the lists, and for me, the ybcspartnership.org website has a link to subscribe under Get Involved, as you said. Does that sign people up for all notices, including for the scoping documents and the NOP, or do people need to know about and navigate separately to this government delivery link that's here?
Thank you. The partnership, as I mentioned, is subscribed to the Gov Delivery, which is the official listserv format. The partnership has just one checkbox right now, which is all partnership information will go to if you sign up for the listserv, or if you're on another person's listserv or another agency's listserv and you want to check our box, you'll get all correspondence related to the partnership.
Right. So people don't need to know this address. They can go to the ybcspartnership.org and to get involved, and that will get them registered for everything, including the NOP.
They can put in their email address, and we'll continue to inform them through that system. Yes, thank you.
Second question. I know this is informational, but is this also coming to us soon for a decision that the board needs to make, or these are delegated functions with issuing the NOP and holding the workshop and such?
The NOP can be signed. It's not a secret requirement that it's signed by a board president, so it can be signed by me. It's been signed by Leslie in the past, so it's a delegated function, I think, at this point.
That's fine, and I don't have an opinion or a recommendation. I was curious if this was a setup to something that was coming to us for a decision shortly.
Once the partnership was formed, and the board is a key partner, you and I, the representatives, then all the tasks that are assigned on that will be done. Don't need further action. And so we're the lead agency. We do the notice prep. I like the three of you standing there. I just wish I had my camera to take the photo, and you can post it on your website. Here's our team. Yeah, thanks. Any other board members? Mr. Countryman, did you want to say anything? You don't have to.
No, I always manage to speak up when I need to speak.
We do know that and appreciate that about you. Anyone in the room? Looks like all staff, except for Mr. Shane, who I forgot the last name. Schwartz. Nice to see you here. Anyone online with a hand up?
No hands online.
And no indication from conference call-ins either. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The three of you. Really appreciate this information and background. Very complex project, extremely important, and keeping us advised is also important. So thanks. All right, we are still on board items. 10C, as in cute, competent. You are Dustin Sanoski? Do I say that correctly? Okay, good morning. You're with Flood System Improvement Branch, and you're going to talk about information, I think, is what's before us today, transfer of operation and maintenance responsibilities for Sacramento Riverbank Protection Project to Feather River West Levee. I know where that one is.
Thank you.
So good morning.
Good morning.
Still morning. Morning.
All right, great. Thank you so much. President Dolan, members of the board, again, my name is Dustin Sanowski. I'm with the Flood System Improvement Branch. I'll be giving the informational briefing on the transfer of O&M responsibilities for the Feather River West Levee project within the Sutter Basin, California project. Next slide, please. So again, this is the informational briefing on future board actions to approve the transfer of O&M to the local maintaining agencies. There will be one board resolution for each O&M unit and a letter for each LMA transfer. And as you can see in the table there are three O&M units, 144, 148, 152. Those will be transferred to... Slow down, sorry. Thank you. They will be transferred to Levee District 1 Sutter, Levee District 9, Maintenance Area 16, and Maintenance Area 7. Next slide, please. All right, so a little bit of background. The Feather River West Levee project was initiated in 2010 after a SABUFCA comprehensive evaluation revealed extensive levee vulnerabilities within the Sutter Basin, California project. So the project, the Feather River West Levee project, protects the Sutter Basin levees by addressing these levee vulnerabilities with levee improvements, such as cutoff walls, berms, relief wells, erosion protection, utility relocations, and encroachment removals and compliance improvements. Construction was completed for areas B and C in 2015, for Area D in 2016, and Area A in 2017, which I'll be showing next. Next slide. Thank you. So the project location, just north of Sacramento on the Feather River, basically surrounding Marysville. It can be a little confusing, so I really wanted to use that image there in the middle to show the overlap between the units as well as the different areas of work. And so we have areas A, B, C, and D. In particular, the southern portion of C is in Unit 144, and then the northern portion of C is in Unit 148. Okay, next slide, please.
What happened to 145, 146, 147?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. Thank you, President.
That would be rhetorical. Don't worry about it.
Sure. So the project location for O&M Unit 144, they're all in Levee District 1 Sutter. As you see there, areas A, B, and C. What we're calling Project Area C South, approximately a little over 5 levee miles. Project Area B, 6 levee miles. And Project Area A, which is 5 levee miles. And then the work is done within each of those areas. Next slide, please. So Area A, what's called the Laurel Avenue Repair Project. It's approximately 4,900 feet of levee improvements. 4,300 feet of cutoff wall. They corrected levee geometry deficiencies and replaced pipe penetrations and corrected encroachments. For Area B, approximately 6.1 miles of levee improvements, and all of that were cutoff walls. They also reconstructed 3,100 feet of concrete relief well drainage ditch and constructed an additional 2,500 feet of new concrete relief well drainage ditch. And they also replaced pipe penetrations and corrected encroachments, and they installed 28 new relief wells in Project Area B. Next slide, please.
Wow.
So for Area C South, there were approximately 5.4 miles of levee improvements, and of that, 4.2 miles of levee cutoff wall. They installed a relief well, and they backfilled landside toe depressions. And so that's all within O&M Unit 144. Next slide, please. So for moving north, O&M Unit 148, as you can see, project area will be called C North, located in Maintenance Area 16 and Levee District 9. Approximately 3.7 miles in MA 16, 6.2 in LD 9. Next slide, please. And the description of work there, in MA 16, approximately 3.6 miles of levee improvements and 3.6 miles of cutoff wall. They also did 600 feet of a folded grade and reconstruction of their levee. And then in Levee District 9, 5.7 miles of levee improvements, which the entire stretch were cutoff walls. Next slide, please. Wow. And continuing further north, O&M Unit 152, all of that's located in MA 7, and it was for approximately 13.7 miles of levee. Next slide, please. And so for that, approximately 11.4 miles of levee improvements and 9 miles of cutoff wall. They also performed waterslide slope flattening, and they installed 45 feet of drain stability berm. Next slide, please. So the next steps, the board expects to bring 3 resolutions, board staff, excuse me, expects to bring 3 resolutions in front of the board at a future board meeting to accept the completed work and O&M responsibility for areas A, B, and C South, and transfers the O&M responsibility of Unit 144 to LD1 Center. Also accepts the completed work and O&M responsibility for Area C North, and transfers the O&M responsibility of Unit 148 to LD1S, LD9, and MA 16. And also accepts the completed work and O&M responsibility for Area D, and transfers the O&M responsibility of Unit 152 to MA 7. And lastly, delegates the executive officer to sign and send the transfer letters. Next slide, which is basically questions. This can get a little bit confusing, so by all means, I'm here to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that was well done. These are complex. So I'm thinking that these resolutions are going to be very similar to the 4 that we did today for transfer of operation and maintenance.
Exactly.
And they need to be done by either the local entity that does it by segment or by both. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Board Member Countryman, where are you?
Looking at this maze of responsibilities, is there any thought of the maintenance area being turned back to the locals?
That isn't being discussed at this time. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You said that is being addressed?
They're not discussing that at this
No
time.
discussing that. That is, as we all know, that's not easy. We all have our opinions, but they don't actually translate to what we wish. Yeah. That was you, Board Member Countryman. Do you have anything else?
Nothing else, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Board members, comments, questions? We really appreciate these because when they show up on the agenda, then it saves us from, what is this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, complicated, necessary. There's a lot of work being done by the Sutter Butte agency. So this is a milestone. Any participant in the room want to make a comment, question? I have new glasses, so I'm trying to see. Okay. Anyone online with a hand up?
No hands online.
Thank you. And no phone-ins either.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Good job. Well, I'm going to lose the lottery on how long this meeting will be. We talked a bit that one of the questions that this president is always asked, how long do you think the meeting will be? My answer always is as long as it needs to be, but everyone wants to guess. So there was a lot of guesses about 2 p.m. I think we're not going to be here that long. All right. We have now completed board items. Is that correct? There were 3, ABC. The board receives reports from our board administration and the branches of operation, flood system improvement, environmental services and land management, flood planning and programs. These are written reports of their activities and updates for the prior month. So we appreciate those. And I've said before, and I haven't yet arranged for it, we're going to have each one of you highlight at some meeting once we know for sure that all the sound system and audio works. So does the board want to talk about or make a comment on any of them? I see none here. Anyone in the room? No hands raised, no indication to talk. So thank you all very much for this. We do read them. Every once in a while, we call you or email you. We don't call anymore, we email. Okay. Board comments, committee updates. Board Member Johnson? Advisory Committee hasn't been meeting because all of their comments are being incorporated either into the plan or implementation. That's right. So we've told them, so we're going to watch for that. Vice President?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Countryman, any comments or updates of your activities or ideas?
No, not at this time, no.
Well, your president was fortunate to be part of the activities over 3 days with the Assistant Secretary of the Army, Michael Connor, who came out to meet with folks in California as well as the Central Valley, our jurisdiction, and to begin to understand the relationship. It was good. There was a morning into afternoon workshop with state agencies, and he and his staff and 3 or 4 Army Corps folks in their camos. So it was good to have that. It became kind of presentational, and then it became really good discussion about how we can work together. One day there was a helicopter tour, but only 5 people, actually 4, because one needs to be the pilot, can be on the helicopters. So I was not able to be on that initial tour that was over projects that were either completed, such as the Southport setback, or contemplated, such as all the work in Yellow Bypass. So I couldn't do that. But then the next day or two after the groundbreaking at Lookout Slough, I got to jump on that helicopter that did look over projects within the Delta and a little bit of Sacramento. So it was more look-see. It is very challenging to have a conversation within the hub of a helicopter, but it was great. I'll pass on my photos, the ones that are good. So that was very helpful. And he was interesting, and set up ways for continuing communication and not just showing up for these broad scale meetings. So that's my comments, I think. The only notes I put down anyway. All right. Item 13 is upcoming meetings and topics. Virtual only workshop of the board, Friday, August 5th. That's next week. That is related to the plan, funding, and policy. Board workshop, virtual only, Friday, October 12th. That's related to the plan, climate change, and related issues. Coordinating committee meets the 4th Friday, August 24th. Always very interesting. The meeting that was held this month on July 27th was excellent and really comprehensive, almost a fire hose of information on all the projects that are contemplated, underway, funded, hoped for in planning within the San Joaquin Valley. So I think you're all on the email broadcast for coordinating committee, and what was also sent out was the PowerPoint indicating information about each of the 11 projects. So if you don't have that, Kim Floyd will make sure that you get it. It was thanks to her and all the 11 presenters for giving that information. And there were 68 folks on that online meeting. So that was great to happen. And then we have our regular board meeting on August 26th, which we will plan to have in this room, or we'll tell you where it's to be well in advance, and it will be as today, where we can hear and we can see, and so can our public. So anything else for the order of today before we go to closed session? Everyone's so quiet. Did I miss something, or are you just looking at me with a smile, all of you? Okay. All right, what? Yeah. Who said we'd be done by noon? Nobody. This adjourns the public part of our meeting. And we will take, the board will go into closed session, but we're going to take a 10-minute break before we go to closed session. That will allow everyone who's not invited to be to this closed session to leave. And then we will come back to public session, but just to make an announcement, and I will tell you that the announcement will be, we held a closed session regarding the recruitment and appointment of an executive officer, and there are no actions to be announced. So the board will do that because it's personnel and we want to talk about it. We need to as well. So we will take a break, adjourn the public portion for now, 10-minute break of the board, then closed session. Thank you. Are we back being recorded? All right. The board is reconvened for the purpose of indicating what was, that we had a closed session for the purposes of recruitment and appointment of executive officer. I also feel that I need to restate the actions that were taken on July 15th. Since it was during a workshop, we had a closed session at that date of the workshop of July 15th, and the board took 3 actions in closed session. The first was a unanimous vote accepting the resignation of Leslie Gallagher. The second was a unanimous vote of appointing Sarah Backus as our acting executive officer. And the third was to seek the services of a recruitment agency to augment the typical outreach for job announcements. So those actions were taken on July 15th. No actions today. We just discussed more of the process of recruitment. So that is all. And our meeting is fully adjourned.